Everybody, this is Jeff Veal, the business guru, coming to you from downtown Manila. And today I've got an awesome guest all the way from my old home country, Australia. The gentleman's name is 𝐊𝐿𝐴. And Ray's managing director of a wonderful company called Successful Endeavours Pty Limited. And wow, what a story we've got here for you guys. His industry is electronics design, embedded software, electronics manufacturing. He's been in the industry for some 28 years. Imagine what he knows about electronics, guys. Unbelievable. Brief description of his business: Successful Endeavours is a multi-award-winning Australian electronics design and embedded software development consultancy focusing on small to medium-sized Australian businesses who want to improve their existing products. That's pretty interesting. Margins or market share through development of their next generation of market offerings, who are wanting to keep their core electronics manufacturing in Australia. And hasn't that landscape changed over the years? Key achievements or projects. Since then, Ray and Successful Endeavours have been winners or finalists for more than 60, that's 60 guys, awards, including winning Casey Business of the Year 2010, Melbourne Southeast Small Business of the Year in 2013, I think it's IoT Innovation Award 2018 for Australia, ICT Business of the Year in Australia 2019, and there's many, many more here, guys. Personal motto or philosophy he's going to tell us later, and he's going to tell us some interesting facts about himself. But in the meantime, let me introduce our guest, 𝐊𝐿𝐴. How are you, Ray?
Good, thanks, Jeff.
How's the weather in downtown Melbourne today? We've got 4 seasons there. What season is it today?
We're in the slightly drizzly but not too cold version.
That's a common one, that one.
Yes.
I always tell people the best thing to come out of Melbourne is a Hume Highway. that's my sort of one. Ray, tell us a bit about your journey. Let's get you started. Tell us about your journey and what inspired you to pursue your current career all those years ago. Take us back.
Okay, so, growing up, I read a lot of science and science fiction. I really liked playing with equipment and trying to make things work. Mm-hmm. I would have liked to have been an astronaut, but it was a bit unrealistic. I thought science would be good, so I did 1 year of a science degree. First person in the extended family to go to uni. And at the end of 1 year, I had no idea why I was doing a science degree. So I realised I had an idea, but I didn't have a destination in mind. Mm-hmm. So I took a year off, worked some mundane jobs, joined a pub band, and learned to play guitar. It's not the recommended sequence. Normally you learn to play guitar first and then you join the band. But the equipment we were using was rubbish. And I thought to myself, surely somebody can design something better than this. Mm-hmm. So I went back to my uni and I said, what do I study if I want to learn how to design electronics? And so they said, you want to do electrical engineering? To which I said, is that a thing? Because at high school it was all, are you going to do law, commerce, medicine? And I kept saying, I want to do science. And they say, do we mention law, commerce and medicine? Yeah. So I went back to uni to study electrical engineering. I was offered some credits for my previous study, but I didn't take them because I wanted to do it again from scratch, because now I had a reason why I was doing it. And there's something, when you're studying, having a reason to do it really changes how you engage with it. Yeah, so that got me into engineering. While I was at uni, I was really keen. So I was actually designing professional audio equipment for recording studios and music artists, not to make money, but because I was hungry to learn and practice what I was learning. Because with education, your intuition grows from contact with problems.
Absolutely.
Not just from being able to fill in answers. And so it was that very hands-on side of things that actually got me to really get started with stuff. And so that's how I ended up in engineering. I never wanted to make money as the end result. So I'm not one of those people who set out to, I'm going to be rich. I wanted to make a difference. I wanted to leave the world better.
Yep.
Yeah. And so when I graduated from uni, I actually went and did overseas aid volunteer work in Pakistan for 6 months.
Wow, awesome.
And so that gave me such a different view of the world.
Absolutely.
Because up until then, I didn't feel like I was one of the world's rich. that experience actually told me that I was one of the world's rich, and that I had a responsibility to use that position to try and, do something useful.
Yeah.
Because in those sort of places, I mean, we don't really understand the refugee situation here, but in those places, they've got two forms of poverty. They've got lack of money, lack of resource. But the other thing there is that they've got no opportunity to make a decision to change their destiny. They're stuck.
Yeah.
And that's really disabling.
Yeah. Tell me, what's been the biggest challenging aspect of your work, and how have you overcome that over the years?
Well, the biggest challenge was that in engineering school, I learned how to be a very good engineer.
Yes.
So when I finally decided to set out and run my own business, because I was tired of working for businesses whose direction didn't align with my values.
Yes.
And so my wife and I set out on this journey. We co-founded the business together, and we had no idea what we were getting into. And I didn't understand that there was a whole skill set out there in business that I had none of. I could do the maths and I could do the engineering. So I was your classic E-myth. So I was the technician who started a business because I could do something, and I thought I learned how to sell it.
Yeah.
But there's a whole bunch of other stuff to running a business. So I had a very good job with tax benefits. I had flexible working arrangements while kids were going through high school and those sort of things. But at the end of that season, it wasn't making the difference I wanted to make. And I realised I didn't know what to do to change that, which told me that I was basically missing an education in something important.
Yeah.
So I went looking for a business coach. I did some of an MBA.
Interesting.
I went to every seminar I could find on business growth, business development, that sort of stuff. And I discovered. Sorry, what was that?
What did you learn from that? I'm interested to hear the answer to that. What did you learn from that?
I learned two things from that. One is that there's a whole industry out there of people called business coaches who can't run their own small business consultancies properly, but are trying to convince you they'll miraculously do better with you.
Yeah, spectators.
Or they might have very good domain expertise in one area.
Yeah.
But once that's not your problem.
Yeah.
And so they just want you for the monthly fee. I learned some other things too a bit later on, but Australia is a wonderful place. We're very resourceful.
Yes.
As people, but we're also very uncollaborative because of that. We often think we can get by on our own. And so we're not very good at partnering. And what I saw a lot of was businesses not partnering with other businesses when it would have been in their interest to do so.
Sure.
Or the idea that if I've got $1 and I give it to you, I've lost $1.
Yeah.
Rather than, if I've got $1 here, what's the best use of this $1?
Yes.
It might be that the best use of this $1 is to give it to you so you can turn it into 5.
Correct. Yeah. Nothing wrong with that. Yeah.
But we have a lot of the, if you get $1, then I've lost it kind of thinking. So Australia's got very low management acumen, typically in our managers, low collaboration, low access to finance, and no government policy of any substance for any industry.
Yeah.
So it's a difficult place to grow into a substantial organisation.
Yeah. I get it. Yeah. And you got the tall poppy syndrome, which is very real in Australia.
It is. That was also held me back. My business coach did two things besides educate me about business that really helped. The first one he said is, "Are you any good?" And then he says, "I don't believe a word you're about to say. I don't believe your website. I don't believe your brochure. I can pay people to make you sound good. I need you to prove it."
Yeah, not bad.
So you start off with, give me a break. But then you think, you know what? If I was buying from someone, it would really help if they could demonstrate that they're actually a safe pair of hands for what I'm wanting them to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's where the awards thing came from.
Lovely.
So and so we've won a lot of technical awards, but we've also won a lot of business awards. The fact that we got our act together on the business side. The thing that really came out of that is learning to tell your story. so the other person gets it. It's called communication.
I love that. I love that. Ray.
Yeah, so marketing at its best is just telling the truth so the other person gets it.
Yeah. I'll tell you what my coach taught me. Yeah, funny story. I was around 40 and I was minting money. I made money, a lot of money from 30 plus. I had 5 multi-million-dollar businesses, guys, over the years. And each one of them was interesting. I went in with my big ego. I'm going to kill it here. And I'll tell you, I never made a dime the first 6 months because when I got in, I realized what I didn't know, like you said earlier, right? So, because I thought, oh, this would be a piece of cake. It was not a piece of cake. It was difficult. Anyway, I was about 40 and I saw Pete Frances and John McEnroe, tennis players with coaches. I thought, why would these guys have, I was amazed, why would these guys have a coach? They're so bloody good. And a little voice said to me, Jeff, they want to get better. And I thought, shit, that's not bad. I want to get better too. I'm going to hire a coach. And true story, I hired 4 coaches over a 3-month period, right? Within 1 month or so, 3 of those coaches were paying me to coach them. They'd never had a bloody business. They had no idea they were working out of a bloody book. They'd bought at the shop or they'd bought a franchise, whatever. The 4th one had a very bad bedside manner. I think it was my ego and his ego. We clashed a lot, right? But I paid him 20 grand and I learnt one thing. I never learned it until about 5 years after he left. And it came into my head and it's been there ever since. And it was this, you'll know it. It was, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
So keep learning and keep listening, right? And you'll never know it all, but you'll know a lot more than most people, right? If you have that attitude.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, the other thing that my business coach did that helped me with the tall poppy syndrome is every time you fail to tell another person what you bring to the table, so that they can make an informed decision about whether that's going to be good for them or not, whether they want to buy that or not, you've not only robbed them, so you've robbed yourself, but you've really robbed them.
Absolutely.
And so that really helped me to get more comfortable with being more public, telling my story, putting us forward for awards, starting to get a little bit, giving people confidence. So we do electronics. My guys do more maths in a week than most people would do in a lifetime.
Wow.
Because it's the nature of the job.
Yes.
But the number one thing that we sell is hope.
Yes.
We've got a business here that's got an ambition to do something.
Yes.
And they can't get there on their own.
Absolutely.
They need help. And so what we're doing is we're trying to take their dream and we're trying to put legs on it, on the product side of the equation. We can't make their business successful. We might query some of their brief to us of what the product should do and shouldn't do and stuff like that and who for. But the other thing that I've developed over time is we have this thing called stakeholder analysis, which is asking questions, who cares about this? Who cares about this? What do they need from it? And a product which satisfies the needs of all of those stakeholders adequately well. You can't do everybody the same, but as long as they all adequately satisfied, will probably be successful. A product that misses the mark in significant ways for significant stakeholders is almost certainly going to fail.
Yeah, yeah. Well, what's your thoughts on building the better mousetrap?
So it has to be worth doing.
Yes.
And the value proposition has to be there. So say a $5,000 mousetrap probably has, six customers if you gold plate it around the world. And obviously we live in an era where a lot of things get commoditized.
Yes.
So a lot of those commodity products, they go where the globalization tool allows them to be done at the best profit margin for the business. So we focus on things which are hard and we focus on things which are what I call commercially defensible. So they have high value, high cost, high complexity, difficult to copy. In fact, maybe even difficult to work out how we even did it.
Yes. I heard a good story the other day. You probably heard it. Apparently the Americans spent something like $200 million to invent a pen that could work upside down with the gravity and everything in space. And
Yes.
the difference was the Russians used a pencil.
Yes. The adjunct to that story is that the Russians have a lot more problems with electrical shorts in their electronics because of the graphite floating around.
Yeah, there you go.
So it's actually quite an interesting one. The Russians would have done better to have used something more like a crayon from that perspective.
Yeah, right.
But yes, it is interesting, isn't it, that you can pour a lot of money into something that if you just really thought. Yeah, so we pick up projects other people have failed at, and sometimes when you look at the project, it's because they didn't know that thing that they didn't know mattered. Sometimes, but sometimes they've just come at it from a really awkward angle.
Yeah, correct.
And if you step back, so there's an old saying, if you're finding it hard, you might be doing it wrong.
Yeah, that's right.
Or it might actually be hard, but it's really good to know which of those two it is, because you can fix the first one.
Yeah, and I say never give up, but also sometimes you got to know when to give up too. Tell us an important moment in your career. It changed your direction, Ray, when you were a young boy. Where was that aha moment that pretty much changed your direction totally?
I don't know that there was one aha moment. It's a bit more like, a gravity well. I just kept moving in a particular direction. So, I'm intelligent and I like doing the mental stuff.
Yes.
So, there's this thinking fast, thinking slow processes. So I engaged both of them really well. I read vociferously as a child.
Yeah, it's a big one.
And I did really well at school, and I got encouraged because of that. So that sort of gives you some motivation. And so those things together kind of push me in a particular direction. I was never going to be satisfied with a lazy job, and I was never going to be satisfied with a job that wasn't actually making a difference, and I was never going to be satisfied with a job that was ethically murky. Yeah,
there's a lot of those around. In your opinion, what are the key qualities and skills? I can see one of them already, your determination, but what are the key qualities and skills that have helped contribute to your success over these many years?
Yeah, so the number one indicator of success in the world is called grit.
Yeah.
So that never giving up thing you talk about.
Yep.
Yeah. So being prepared to push through, or forget which of the management gurus said this, but it's go the extra mile.
Yeah.
There's very little traffic on that second mile.
Yeah, that's right. I say see it.
It's Peter Drucker. Yeah.
You know that one day. Yeah. See at the top. There's lots of room here, and the view's good.
Yes. Yeah. So one of them is that willingness to pay the price and to keep going for things that are worth it. And the other is to be prepared to do the yard. So Einstein, I think, has the best example of this. So someone once asked him, how come you're so much smarter than everybody else? And he said, well, I don't know if I am actually that much smarter than everybody else, but I certainly stayed with the problem long enough. Yeah, correct. That's part of the battle, isn't it? Yeah, and so that ability to push through the difficult times and to not let other people knock you off course, because lots of other people have got their own agendas. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. When I went to school, the rest of the students actually wanted me to fail. They didn't like the fact that I liked school and I did well. Yeah. And so you've got to weed toxic things out of your life. Yeah, that's right. All the time and forever, ongoing. Ray, how do you stay motivated, as you have, and continue to innovate in your field, Ray? What's your secret? I've got grandchildren. Yeah. And I want them to have the same opportunity that I've had, which means that we need to have a functioning economy still. Yes. And it needs to actually have capacity and capability to do stuff. So, for instance, one of the things that I focus on manufacturing is that it creates a lot of jobs. Yeah, awesome. It also creates a lot of jobs around it in all the other things that happen. Yeah. It creates fundamental value. So you've got something to lever off. But the other characteristic it's got, and this is why it's being used in Asia to try and lift a continent out of poverty, is it spreads wealth through a community more evenly than any other industry because it creates employment at every level.
Lovely. Yeah. Nice.
So,
nice legacy.
Yeah. So that combination, and and my wiring, it suits me to making stuff tangible things. I know the engineering part's an intangible, but the outcomes are tangible things that people can engage with. My personal view is that my generation have been very good at wealth acquisition, but not so good at setting the future up for the following generations to have the same opportunity. Money is an issue. So French economist Piketty did a book looking at the last 20 centuries of called Capital of the 21st Century, and basically said there was only one century in the last 20 of them where the poor were able to get richer.
Right. Yeah.
Compared to GDP. And that was the last century when we had 2 world wars, the rebuilding effort from that, and the technological explosion that happened in the 50s, the 60s, the early 70s. But the trend is now back the other way. And so, we're making decisions that are going to have ramifications. Whatever you might think of global warming, if we continue to trash the planet, it's going to bite us at some point. Yeah. And so, from an engineering risk management perspective, we have this thing called failure mode effect analysis.
Right.
How bad is it going to be? How likely is it going to be that it can happen? And how clear will it be that it is happening? And so if you put global warming as a risk through that matrix, it says you need to have a strategy for dealing with this. The insurance companies are already there. The banks are already there.
Yes.
And so, I want my grandchildren who are going to inherit a mess to have the resources to be able to do something about that.
Yeah, fair enough. Tell us about a recent project or achievement amongst your many, Ray, that you're particularly proud of.
We've got a few quirky ones that are good fun. So digital bagpipe.
That is quirky.
Yeah. So one of the problems bagpipe players have is that they've got a large unwieldy instrument that's very loud.
Yeah.
And people tend to polarize between love it and hate it.
Yeah, correct.
And if you want to practice a lot, your family get very annoyed at you.
Yeah, no doubt.
So our joke is digital bagpipers, keeping practicing bagpipe players alive.
Yeah, interesting.
And so the idea is that it's basically a Fairlight CMI synthesizer.
Right.
That's got finger sensors and all that sort of stuff and samples on board and earbuds. So you can play along to your heart's content. You can record it into recording studios. It's got MIDI on it. And so the leading instrument in the world in this space is designed in Melbourne, made in Melbourne. Yep. And the 2 main markets for it are Scotland and the US.
Yeah, I was going to ask you.
Scotland's obvious, and the US is just a big market.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, do the Scottish love you or hate you?
Well, the guy who won the Edinburgh tattoo, one of them recently said that instrument was the reason he was able to do that is because he was able to practice enough.
Fantastic. Wow, you made a difference, huh? That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so that's Blair Digital Chances. Anybody who wants to actually check it out.
You think about that. Here you are in Melbourne. Here's this guy in Scotland, and you're changing lives across the other side of the world.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So that's an example. And that one's always a good one at trade shows and business events. You've got one of them on the stand, and everyone goes, "What?"
Yeah.
So it's a good story. And the guy whose business it is a bagpipe player. He's got a music business that sells accessories for bagpipe players, and he wanted people to be able to practice more.
Wow.
Safely.
Yeah. That's a pretty cool story. What advice would you give someone, Ray, a 20-year-old version of yourself? He wants to follow in your footsteps. What would you tell him?
I would say that if you're going to be successful, you need to master all of the elements required for that success adequately well. First of all, you have to know they exist because you can't do anything if you don't. And next, you either have to be good at enough at it yourself, or you have to have somebody on board good enough at it who will partner with you to pull that off. So, for instance, if we look at business as a skill set, business as a skill set is a weakness in Australia. In fact, there are only 2 jobs you can do in Australia that you require no evidence of competence for and no education in the principles of, and that's become a parent and run a business.
Yeah.
But they're actually really important jobs.
Yeah, and they don't teach it at school, and they don't come with instructions, especially the parent one.
Yeah, absolutely. But so, my number one tip, and I've had the opportunity to say this at both the state and the federal level, my number one tip to government is, if you want to improve the economy, you need to educate small business owners better so they can actually make their businesses what they want them to be.
Yeah, I left school at 14, Ray, and I always thought to myself, why didn't they teach people about the value of money and what money can do, and why didn't they teach people about health? Why are they not 2 very strong subjects, right?
The third idea is critical thinking. Why don't they teach people actually listen to what's being said to them and be able to take it apart and see whether it actually makes sense or not?
Yeah, I know. Take me back a long way.
That's what they do in Finland.
Yeah, well, let's see that they get it. You see, and a lot of these other countries get it as well. I think Australia's got the attitude, "She'll be right, mate." Pretty much.
Yes. Yeah, and there are some pluses to that, but the minus is that we don't take this stuff on board.
Yes.
And make it happen. And it's not a case of the government's trying to run our lives or anything like that. It's a case of these are tools for life, and if you master them, then you've got a much better chance of living the life you want to live.
That's right. It's all about. I used to tell people, I've forgotten them now. I think it was the 4 freedoms. I think it was family, friends, freedom, and there was one more. I forget. It was faith was one of them as well. You made a 5th one. But they're 4 of them. There was a 5th one. I've forgotten right now what it was, being an old man. Ray, looking ahead, tell our listeners, what are your goals and aspirations for the future? You've done so much already.
Yeah. So we've got a plan for the business through to 2030 in terms of development of that. Some succession planning starting to come into play there. So that, we pass on the torch.
Yeah.
And make sure. Yeah, and so they've got stuff in place there. We've got a few grandchildren now, so it's carving out a bit more time for them. I still stay fit. I still play music, so that
awesome.
learning to be a pub guitarist has actually gone down a good path. And I think getting involved in life, continuing to spread an optimistic viewpoint.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of doom and gloom around now, and there's a lot of people being bombarded with, as you said before, noise. There's this sea of noise coming everywhere. We also touched before we actually started recording on the fact that there's a lot of professions like lawyers, police,
bankers,
accountants, commercial leaders and that. Credibility is being undermined everywhere at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a concerted attack on democracy, because the only way you can take democracy down is to take down trust.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. I always say I've learnt this one over the years too. Only recently, like the last 4 or 5 years, I never used to listen, is trust your gut, guys. You got a brain and your gut is your second brain, right? So I tell people out there, trust your gut. That's what it's there for. It's there to help you, right? Like instinct. And it's quite often true. So listen to your gut, listen to your body. Right, before we wrap it up, tell our listeners how they can find out more about you and your wonderful work. What's the best way, my friend, to reach out to you and have a chat and find out more?
Yeah, so we've got a website at successful.com.au. There's a bunch of stuff there. We've got a blog with 450 articles on it about of business and technology perspectives. I'm on LinkedIn. So 𝐊𝐤𝐴 is my handle on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So
really simple, guys.
Yeah, so you can certainly find it there. The business is on Facebook. We're still on X, although I prefer to call it Twitter because X is something you've broken up with.
I like that too. Yeah.
So there's plenty of ways to get in touch and to have a look at what's going on. if you are in Australia and you've got a product idea and you want to see if it's possible, then we'd love to have a look at that to see if we can help.
There's the offer, guys. So, guys, if you got that, if you got a music or coffee cup or anything, or a self-playing guitar, or in Ray's case the bagpipes, reach out to this gentleman and put the idea past him. He'll have a quick look at it for you and give you an assessment and put you on the right track. He's got all that 30 years of knowledge, so he knows a bit about it, guys. Before we wrap it up, Ray, tell us a fun fact about yourself, about the bagpipes and guitar playing and all these things. What's a fun fact about yourself that most people don't know?
A fun fact.
Yeah, you were yo-yo champion when you were 12 or what?
Yeah. So I was club champion 7 years running at my tennis club in Geelong.
Wow. Bloody hell, you are determined.
I am determined. I actually built 2 recording studios from scratch.
Wow.
One in Australia, one in Pakistan. The one in Australia actually recorded albums that made the charts in Australia in days when that was a thing.
Yeah.
And one of the Christian bands there had the largest selling album at Coorong bookstore that year, which was an Australian album. I took up running after 50. Apparently you're meant to do it before. So December 2020, I ran 7 half marathons.
Wow. Oh, goodness, man, you're a glutton for punishment.
Yeah, that's right. I like photography. I like astronomy. I do still compose music and play live.
Most of our audience, Ray, sitting on the lounge. Here you are. You're out living life large, my friend.
Well, you need the energy. If you're going to do stuff, you need energy. And so you talked about health.
Yeah.
If we're going to teach people about health, you not only need grit and perseverance, but you need the energy behind that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so for me, I don't enjoy running as a thing, but I enjoy what running allows me to do, because it's a really easy way to get, a fair amount of cardio. It doesn't build strength though, so I also go to the gym.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, we're about to wrap it up. Guys, if you want your 15 minutes of fame, just like Ray and every man and woman out, you've all got a story, even those guys who were born with a silver spoon in your mouth. Life's like a river. It's constantly changing, ebbs and flows, right? So, guys, we'd love to hear your story. Think about it. A TV commercial going to set you back about $30,000, and they'll probably go and grab a beer or go to the toilet or make a burger while the commercial's on. 10 radio spots in your city going to set you back $3,000 to $5,000. They're probably going to play them at 2 a.m. Come on, 15 minutes of fame, and we'll put you across all the social media channels as you will yourself, and we'll expose you to potentially thousands of people. Once again, Ray, thanks for being on the show today. It's been awesome, my friend.
Thanks, Jeff. It's been great.